Okay, good evening. We're here to give the JCEA financial presentation, and we'll start with some slides to open the subject. We will then continue with stories and interests, and then finish with our salary proposal to the district.
After a very difficult year with all the challenges of COVID, it is reassuring that there appears to be an extremely positive financial outlook for the future.
A couple of headlines put this into perspective. The Denver Post noted that although we, quote, brace for a long-lasting budget catastrophe from COVID, it hasn't happened, the head budget writer affirmed. There will be more money than bills to pay in the upcoming budgetary year, which is good news.
In fact, as Senator Bob Rankin noted, I just had a hard time dealing with having so much money, reported the Colorado Sun. Regarding the budget stabilization or negative factor, Senator Chris Hansen added that between a couple of funding sources, we have essentially wiped out the negative factor for the next 2 fiscal years, which is truly great news and unprecedented in the recent past for the state budget.
If we look at funding for Jeffco schools, the total program funding dropped some last year as a result of COVID, but it's slated for a significant increase in the coming fiscal year, according to the governor's proposed budget.
Some additional money is a result of federal ESSER funds. As can be seen on the slide, between ESSER 1, 2, and 3, the district is looking at receiving over $100 million of additional funding. The CDE has been clear that these monies can be used for salaries. They can also go to pay for other COVID-related expenses.
Okay, this is an excerpt from the CDE office hours presentation on March 18th, which discusses how it is appropriate to use ESSER money for paying salaries to existing employees for reasons such as maintaining fair market value of pay to educators as compared to other educators in the region. We want to be sure that the use of these funds is carefully thought out and distributed equitably, decided upon collaboratively, and used in a way that respects our educators. We urge that the district takes the needs of current Jeffco employees in mind before hiring hundreds of new ones, and what will be best for the long-term interest of Jeffco students.
A budget is a statement of values. The spending pattern of the district shows what our school board and management have prioritized as more important or less important.
Past spending patterns show that there is room in the budget.
This past winter, JCEA, which includes our custodial staff, bus drivers, paras, secretaries, and so many educational support professionals who are crucial to the success and learning of our students, came to impasse with the district over salary negotiations and went into the fact-finding process. We would like to read a few excerpts from the April 6th report of the fact finder regarding this dispute. Quote, "There is no question the district has built up a substantial reserve over the years, due in large part to its practice of underestimating revenue and overestimating expenses. That is worth repeating, that the fact finder determined that the district has a pattern of underestimating costs and overestimating expenses." The fact finder later comments that it is quite possible the practice of underestimating revenue endures, resulting in income in excess of a gloomy forecast and a healthier budget. If the district's revenues estimates prove to be a lowball, once again, it will undoubtedly face a frustrated bargaining unit looking for equity.
To back up what was discussed by the fact finder, we're including a number of slides that include data from the comprehensive annual financial reports, from quarterly financial reports, and other district sources. This first one is a graph with 2 lines on it. The top orange line shows the original budgeted expenses of the combined costs of general instruction and special education instruction, which is the lion's share of the expenses for the JCEA bargaining unit. The blue line indicates the money that actually ended up getting spent for these categories each year. In agreement with what the fact finder discussed, there has been a consistent overestimate of the cost of educators over the years. In 2020, the overestimate came to $17 million.
This next graph shows the 2019-20 actual spending for total instruction in blue. The orange bar represents what the district budgeted for the current academic year, which projected a nearly $30 million increase in total instruction spending in this COVID year compared to last year. The final gray bar represents the 2019-20 total with a 3% increase built in per last year's bargaining agreement to take the one-time stipend that was given to educators. This shows a $12.7 million increase in spending. Essentially, the district budgeted far more than was actually paid to employees in the negotiated agreement, over $25 million more.
And we can put this another way and look at it from a different angle. If we were to determine the cost of all 5,417 people on the 2019-20 salary schedule by multiplying the number of FTEs in each cell of the schedule by the salary that's earned in that step, and then summing all of those cells together, the total cost to the district comes to $352.24 million. We can repeat this calculation on the 2020-21 salary schedule and add a 3% for the negotiated stipend. That will yield a total of $365.24 million, which again gets an increase of about $12 million, which matches the 3% calculation from the last slide. However, the story is a little more complex than that. In fact, the FTE count has decreased this year so that there are now only 5,325.67 educators on the salary schedule. When the above calculation is repeated on this 2020-21 school year, plus 3% calculation, the total cost actually comes in at $354.6 million. This is only $1.26 million more than last year, which contrasts sharply with the $37.95 million increase that the district budgeted for general and special education instruction.
We see an even more drastic contrast when looking at the district quarterly financial report ending on March 31st, 2021. For the 2019-20 school year, the salary cost to date at that point was $363.3 million. In the current school year, this same employee cost is $348.1 million. So, rather than having a smaller increase in cost than anticipated, the salary figures show that the district has actually reduced salary costs by over $15 million compared to last year. Stating that again, the district has paid its employees over $15 million less this year than last year, even accounting for the 3% stipend. This is a 4.2% decrease in pay to Jeffco employees this year, as compared to last year, based upon the actual cost figures from the quarterly financial report. This is with many educators having worked through the most difficult and stressful years of their career.
We can repeat this calculation with total expenditures. The pattern seen is similar, with a total of $25.45 million less spent this year than last year to date. The district has decreased total expenditures by 4.7% this year, as compared to last year at this point in time.
The quarterly report also breaks down spending in certain line items in the budget. For example, the year-to-date spending for the general instruction category has decreased by 8% as compared to last year, which is a $22.7 million increase. The district has saved $22.75 million this year as compared to last year in spending for general instruction. Special education instruction has seen a more modest decrease of 2% with a monetary value of $0.87 million. The opposite is seen, however, for the expenditure on general administration. For this line item, spending has actually increased by 3% over last year, which works out to an increase of $0.74 million in additional money spent toward administration.
The revenue side of the equation matches the words of the fact finder. In the 2019-2020 school year, the district underestimated the actual revenue by over $9 million. In total, this figure combined with the $17 million overestimation of total instruction means that the district had over $26 million more than they expected, which greatly exceeds the costs of steps for all Jeffco employees. This last year has been tremendously difficult for educators with the demands of simultaneously teaching in person and remotely. Imagine the boost in morale if the district had announced the institution of steps partway through the year. As for this year, it's harder to look at revenue as at this point in time, taxes are currently being paid. However, the district does note that as of March 31st, the available cash on hand was $321 million. This is $34 million more than last year, which represents a 12% increase compared to the same time last year.
This slide shows budget trends over recent years with data from the district financial report. The graph compares the total revenue received by the district with the money allocated to the total instruction category as described 2 slides ago. The values have all been adjusted to 2020 dollars. Between 2015 and 2020, the revenue the district has received has increased by about $65 million. However, the money spent on total instruction has been largely flat, with only about a $1 million increase. As the district has received money over the past 6 years, the additional share allocated to educators is less than 2% after adjusting for inflation.
Okay, we did then dig a little bit deeper into this discrepancy between the projected costs based upon the financial estimates and the actual costs seen in the past several years. Now, recently, the cost of steps, levels, and quartiles has been stated as being about $17 million, with the JCEA bargaining unit's portion of that being in the vicinity of about $12 million. The district stated that the cost of a 1% COLA is approximately $6 million. And we estimate that about $4.5 million of this represents the JCEA bargaining group. Retirement savings are given as a separate line item in the budget and have generally fallen in the range of $5 to $6 million each year. To be cautious, we've assumed that nearly all of this is due to educator retirement within the JCEA unit and assign a value of $5 million to this. Now there is, as we move forward, a possibility of a discrepancy of a few $1 million using these rough estimates. But we wanted to estimate or kind of examine the general trends seen in money allocated to teachers in recent years.
Looking back over the past several years of negotiated agreements, we started with the 2016-17 total instruction cost as previously defined using the district financial report. Next, for 2017-18, we factored in the 2% COLA, steps, and levels. For 2018-19, there was a 3% COLA, steps, levels, and in this time period, there was also an addition of approximately $12 million into the salary schedule as a result of the mill levy passed by the taxpayers of the county. In the 1920 school year, there was a 2.5% COLA, steps, and levels, bringing us to our current salary schedule and step position.
Okay, this graph then shows the projected cost line in orange plotted against the actual costs of total instruction obtained from the comprehensive annual financial reports. As can be seen, there's a large and growing discrepancy between the two lines. By the 2019-2020 school year, the cost that the district has ascribed to the raises over the past several years was more than $36 million above what was actually occurring in real dollars. To put this another way, the district cost estimates greatly overstate the amount of money that educators cost to the district budget.
As we can see, there are large discrepancies between district cost estimates and what has actually been spent, with the cost of raises being substantially overestimated. Now, how can this be explained? Our hypothesis is that the savings from turnover are consistently higher than estimated. This results in the district being excessively conservative with their cost estimates for educator salaries.
We did some further calculations in an attempt to either support or refute our hypothesis. Now, as a first step, we took the 2017-18 FTE table, and we multiplied each cell within that table with the ascribed salary for that cell found on the 2018-19 salary schedule. Essentially, we calculated what would be the total cost of every single person in the FTE table for the JCEA bargaining unit, were they paid using the 2018-19 salary schedule. Then we repeated that calculation, only this time we used the 18-19 FTE table and put it into the exact same schedule to get a look basically at what's happened to the outlay of money from one year to the next, which will show actual true movement within the salary schedule. So when steps are given, the people will move down. If levels are awarded, they'll move across. If people retire or leave, they will leave. And if new people are hired, they'll come in. So it gives a picture of the actual movements within the salary schedule year to year. And as a result, this will then account for the true step and level movement of all employees, as well as any retirements, resignations, new hires, things like that. When we did this analysis, we found that the total cost difference was $4.4 million for steps and levels between 2017-18 school year and 2018-19 school year. Now, if you include a 30% cost for para and benefits, and I think some of the benefits are fixed, so I think this is a very conservative estimate here. To put 30% is very conservative. This amounts to a $5.7 million increase for the transition between those 2 years. We then repeated this calculation comparing the 2018-19 and then the 2019-20 FTE tables, placing those FTE tables into the 2019-20 salary schedule. This time, the cost difference came up at $3.9 million. Factoring in benefits and para, we got a total of $5.2 million as the cost of steps and levels between these two school years. We could also, so in summary, the actual cost of the district transitioning between the 2017-18 school years for steps and levels of all JCEA employees, including para and benefits, was less than $6 million. The total cost of steps and levels for the next year, including benefits, was only a little over $5 million. We continued the calculation for the current year, in which the salary schedule has been frozen, and find that the district has actually reduced pay to JCEA employees by approximately $9 million. And that represents district savings. If we factor in benefits again, we get actually a figure of $11.6 million of district savings this year as compared to last year. Now, although the salary schedule has been frozen this past year, the number of more senior teachers have retired or gone to other districts and have been replaced by more junior educators far lower in the salary schedule. When steps are granted, all current employees move one step on the schedule and thus earn a higher wage. This year, with frozen steps, there was no movement. So each retirement and subsequent hire represents pure savings for the district. It could be noted, as we did earlier, that there are fewer employees on the schedule this year, and that this represents a part of the savings, which is true. However, with that said, it should also be noted that the $5.7 million total increase in cost incurred by the district between 2017 and 2018 school years includes the addition of 68 FTEs on the JCEA allotment of employees, basically. The result of this analysis seems to indicate support for our hypothesis that the total savings from turnover has been underestimated, which could explain the consistent discrepancy between projected and actual costs over the years.
Prior to closing, we wanted to move on to the position of Jeffco salaries compared to those of comparable metro area districts. This first slide shows the 2021 starting salaries with a bachelor's degree. As can be seen, Jeffco comes in near the bottom of the pack with a starting salary that is some $10,000 less than Westminster and a lowly ranking of 10th out of the 13 districts shown.
If we look at step one, the final lane, we see that Jeffco comes in dead last, approximately $5,000 below most of the area districts and more than $35,000 less than Westminster.
The salaries offered by surrounding districts are not static, however, and many of the surrounding districts have agreed, in negotiations, to significant pay increases for their employees next year. Westminster bumped its starting educator salary to $55,000 and also agreed to a 3% COLA to all salary placements for the coming 2 years. Mapleton also brought their starting salary well above $50,000 and increased their top pay to over $110,000. Sheridan agreed to 2 steps and a 6% increase in salary for an average raise of $11,000. And Gilpin gave its educators a $6,000 ongoing raise.
In summary, there's more money than initially projected for the coming year. The district has shown a consistent pattern of overestimating costs and underestimating revenues that is also backed by the findings of the fact finder. Money allocated to the educator pay has consistently lagged that of many of the other areas and categories in the budget. Other area districts have seen significant increases in pay to educators. So now we'd like to share some stories and interests to humanize the numbers that we just shared with you.